Welcome to the Daily Globe. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. The world is holding its breath. In cities across continents, people gather in public squares, glued to screens, searching for answers in the faces of news anchors and scrolling headlines. There's a sense of unease, a collective anxiety that something fundamental is shifting beneath our feet. Today, October 8, 2025, a chill descends on the global economy. Not from winter, but from Washington, D.C. The city, often the stage for political drama, now finds itself at the epicenter of a decision that reverberates far beyond its borders. The world's financial pulse quickens as uncertainty spreads. President Trump's decision to impose a sweeping 35% tariff on most Canadian goods has upended decades of economic partnership. For generations, the United States and Canada have shared not just a border, but a deep economic bond, one built on trust, open markets and mutual prosperity. Now, that relationship is under unprecedented strain. Financial markets from Tokyo to London are in turmoil, investors scrambling to adapt. Stock indices plunge, currencies fluctuate wildly, and analysts work overtime to predict what comes next. The ripple effects are immediate, with global supply chains and multinational corporations facing sudden, unpredictable challenges. This isn't just about numbers, it's about jobs, communities, and the supply chains that bind North America. On factory floors, workers wonder if their livelihoods are at risk. Truck drivers and port workers brace for delays and disruptions. Small towns and big cities alike feel the tremors of a decision made thousands of miles away. The move has ignited fierce debate, protectionism versus free trade. On talk shows and in the streets, voices clash over what's best for the nation. Some see the tariffs as a necessary shield for American workers, while others warn of higher prices, lost jobs, and a dangerous slide toward isolationism. As businesses and workers brace for impact, the very foundation of the North American economic bloc is at stake. Small business owners close early, uncertain if they'll weather the storm. Office workers scan headlines, worried about layoffs. The interconnected economies of the US, Canada, and Mexico now face a test unlike any before. The world watches, uncertain if this is the start of a new era of economic warfare. Journalists scramble to interpret the day's events, while leaders in Europe, Asia, and beyond weigh their own responses. The global map lights up with hotspots of tension as every nation wonders how far the shockwaves will travel. Will these tariffs protect American industry or trigger a cycle of retaliation and decline? Factories that once hummed with activity now stand silent, waiting for orders that may never come. Long-standing partnerships are strained, and the threat of counter-tariffs looms large in the headlines. The coming weeks will determine if diplomacy can prevail, or if the global order is about to fracture. As diplomats gather behind closed doors, the world waits for a sign. Will leaders find common ground, or are we witnessing the first cracks in a system that has held for generations? The US-Canada trade relationship has long been a model of international cooperation. From the 1965 Auto Pact to NAFTA and the USMCA, decades of agreements have created the world's largest trading partnership. These deals enabled seamless cross-border supply chains, especially in autos and agriculture. Yet, critics argued they cost American jobs, fueling calls for renegotiation. The USMCA, signed in 2020, updated trade rules but didn't end friction. Tariffs on Canadian steel in 2018 signaled that even close allies weren't immune to America first. Now a sweeping 35% tariff threatens to unravel this integration, turning cooperation into confrontation. The road to this crisis was paved in just a few months. In April, the Trump administration launched its Liberation Day initiative, a 10% tariff on all imports, with a 90-day window for new deals. By June, steel from Canada, Mexico, and Brazil faced tariffs up to 50%, disrupting key supply chains. The climax came July 11th, a 35% tariff on most Canadian goods, effective August 1st. Simultaneously, threats against Mexico and the EU escalated. These moves marked the most aggressive U.S. trade confrontation in modern history. Businesses and governments now scramble to assess the fallout and whether any USMCA exemptions will apply. The uncertainty is unprecedented. The administration justifies tariffs as a way to fix trade deficits and protect American jobs. Officials cite a $112 billion deficit with Canada, calling it proof of unfair trade. National security is also invoked, linking tariffs to Canada's alleged failure to stop fentanyl. Though data shows most fentanyl enters from Mexico, the White House claims tariffs will revitalize U.S. industry, especially steel, and reduce reliance on foreign materials. Critics argue these justifications are thin, and the real motive is economic nationalism. Tariffs are now a primary tool, not a last resort. Whether this strategy will work, or spark a damaging trade war, remains to be seen. Canada's response has been resolute. Prime Minister Mark Carney vows to defend Canadian workers and businesses, rejecting U.S. pressure. While open to cooperation on security issues, Carney frames the dispute as U.S. protectionism, seeking global support. Canada prepares dollar-for-dollar counter-tariffs, targeting politically sensitive U.S. exports. Defensive measures are also underway to shield Canadian industries from diverted foreign goods. Carney faces a tough balancing act, standing firm without escalating the conflict. Canada's strategy blends strength, diplomacy, and targeted retaliation. The tariff plan faces fierce opposition at home. Governors from border and manufacturing states warn of job losses and supply chain chaos. They argue tariffs will hurt local businesses more than foreign competitors. Labor unions, usually supportive of targeted protection, now fear widespread layoffs and higher costs. A 35% tariff on Canadian auto parts, for example, could cripple U.S. factories. Farmers worry about losing the Canadian market to retaliation. These voices create intense political pressure on the White House. The domestic backlash is growing louder. The economic shockwaves are immediate, rippling across North America with a force that few anticipated. In cities and towns from coast to coast, the impact is felt not just in boardrooms, but in everyday life. The intricate web of trade that connects the United States and Canada is suddenly strained, and the consequences are visible everywhere. American consumers are the first to notice the changes. Prices on everyday essentials, groceries, building materials, and household goods begin to climb. At the supermarket, families stretch their budgets as the cost of food rises. At hardware stores, construction workers and homeowners alike are shocked by the spike in lumber prices, making renovations and new builds more expensive than ever. The auto industry, a cornerstone of North American manufacturing, faces unprecedented challenges. Supply chains that once flowed seamlessly are now disrupted by new tariffs and border delays. Assembly lines slow or even stop, as critical parts become harder to source and more expensive to import. For manufacturers, the uncertainty is overwhelming. Some are forced to consider closing plants or relocating production to avoid mounting costs. This puts thousands of jobs at risk, not just in the US, but in Canada as well, threatening the livelihoods of workers and their families on both sides of the border. The US construction industry braces for soaring lumber prices, slowing projects and leaving workers idle. Meanwhile, American farmers, already facing tight margins, worry about losing access to crucial export markets. With fewer buyers for their crops and livestock, many fear for the future of their farms. In Canada, the situation is equally dire. Industries that rely on American customers, everything from auto parts to raw materials, face plummeting orders. Factories reduce shifts or shut down entirely, leading to layoffs and a sharp drop in revenue for local communities. Financial markets react with volatility, as investors scramble to assess the long-term impact of escalating trade tensions. Stock prices swing wildly, and uncertainty becomes the new normal on Wall Street and Bay Street alike. The Federal Reserve issues stark warnings, cautioning that ongoing trade uncertainty is already stalling economic growth. Policymakers express concern that prolonged disputes could undermine years of steady progress. Most economists now agree. The tariffs are likely to slow the economy, and some warn that a recession could be on the horizon if the situation continues to deteriorate. The stakes are high, and the outlook grows more uncertain by the day. As the risks mount for both nations, leaders and citizens alike are left to wonder how deep these economic tremors will go, and what it will take to restore stability across North America. Experts across the economic and political spectrum warn that the current tariff strategy is not just a bold move, but a dangerous gamble with far-reaching consequences. While some policymakers argue that tariffs can be used as leverage to secure better trade deals, most analysts caution that the risks may far outweigh the potential rewards. The uncertainty alone is enough to rattle markets and unsettle investors, creating a climate of anxiety that can quickly spread through the entire economy. Tariffs act as a hidden tax on American consumers and businesses, raising costs across the board. Everyday goods become more expensive, from groceries to electronics, squeezing household budgets and forcing companies to make tough choices. Many small businesses, already operating on thin margins, may find it difficult to absorb these new costs, leading to layoffs or even closures. For manufacturers, the price of imported materials rises, making it harder to compete both at home and abroad. History shows that trade wars rarely end well. They often spiral out of control, with each side retaliating in turn, choking off exports and deepening economic pain. The headlines from past trade disputes are filled with stories of shuttered factories, lost jobs, and communities left behind. The ripple effects can last for years, long after the initial tariffs are imposed. Canada, Mexico, and the European Union, some of America's closest trading partners, are expected to respond in kind, closing off vital markets for American goods. This tit-for-tat escalation can quickly turn friends into adversaries, straining diplomatic ties, and making future cooperation more difficult. For American farmers and manufacturers who rely on exports, these retaliatory measures could be devastating. The United States also risks undermining the global trading system it helped build after World War II, encouraging other nations to abandon the rules-based order that has underpinned decades of growth. If the world's largest economy turns its back on free trade, others may follow, leading to a more fragmented and unpredictable global marketplace. The best-case scenario is a quick reversal after a short-lived shock, with both sides coming to the negotiating table before lasting damage is done. But the worst-case scenario is far more troubling. A prolonged recession, fractured alliances, and a world economy that takes years to recover. The stakes are enormous, and the margin for error is slim. Supporting American workers and industries is vital, but tariffs are a blunt instrument that can cause massive collateral damage. Instead of targeted relief or investment in innovation, tariffs risk triggering job losses, higher prices, and uncertainty for millions of families. The very people these policies aim to protect may end up paying the highest price. As the debate continues, one thing is clear. The stakes could not be higher, and the outcome will shape the future of the American economy for years to come. We stand at a crossroads for the US, Canada, and the world. The 35% tariff is more than a policy. It's a test of free trade and global cooperation. The tariff tango could send both nations and their partners into economic turmoil. America's winner-take-all approach faces a coalition warning of shared decline. The next moves, diplomacy, retaliation, or reversal, will shape the future. Will we see price spikes, job losses, and supply chain chaos, or a return to negotiation? This is a defining moment for the global order. The outcome will echo for a generation.